Okay, we're going to be looking at lesson 4.2 and 4.3 all at the same time. We have already talked about both slope-intercept and standard form, and so we're going to hit those 2 points again. But what we're really going to start picking up today is what's called point-slope form. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is let's review what slope-intercept is. Alright, so slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b, where b is your y-intercept, okay, or it's where you're going to start your graph on the y-axis. M is your slope, okay, and then keep in mind that the y and the x here, those are just a coordinate point. Okay, now point-slope form, this is a new one. Okay, it is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. Okay, so now on this guy, hopefully we still know that m is going to be our slope, so this has not changed. Okay, now when we're looking at the x1, y1, these are going to be our coordinate points. This is where we would plug in a coordinate point, given one. Okay, now the great thing about all of this stuff is it's not all that confusing because, let's face it, mathematicians are not the most creative people. And so literally the word tells you exactly what you need. You need a slope, you need your m value to write an equation, and you need the intercept, the b value. Point slope, I need a coordinate point, hence what's the x1 and the y1 part stuff there, and then I need the slope. So the names tell you exactly what you need to write that equation. Okay? All right, so let's go down here and let's take a look at example 1. It's asking us to put this stuff into point-slope form. Okay, so that's just what we have right up here, point-slope form. All right, and they're giving you a point and a slope, hence point-slope. All right, okay, so let's look at A here. And first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and we have got y minus 5, because this is our y1 value. This guy would be my x1 value, equals negative 3 x minus negative 2. Okay, now when we're writing point slope, we do need to clean this up a little bit. So this is going to say y minus 5 equals negative 3, and then I'm going to call this x plus 2. So if you have a double negative, let's go ahead and call that. Okay, so now this is your answer. There's nothing to do here. This right here, this is your answer for this section. Okay, so excuse me. So now it asks us to graph. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the easiest thing, and I'm going to graph this point, and then I'm going to push the slope off of that point. So I'm going to find negative 2, 5. So negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's my starting point. So in this case, it's not going to be on the y-axis because we're not doing y equals mx plus b. We're doing here's a point and then the slope. So now I'm going to look at my slope, and I have a slope of negative 3. So I'm going to go down 3, and then remember, we're always running to the right 1. Okay, and then down 3 over 1, down 3, right 1. And there's my line. Okay. So I do end up identifying here that there is a y-intercept right here at negative 1. But again, I just started at this point and then did my slope, did my slope, did my slope. All right. Okay, I want you to pause the video now, and I want you to try to do B on your own and then push play when you think you've got an answer. All right, so you should be rejoining us after trying this problem. Okay, so when you're doing this, you should have y minus negative 3 equals negative 1/2 x minus negative 1. Now again, you should have cleaned it up to x plus 3 equals negative 1/2 x plus 1. Okay, again, when you're graphing, graph the point they give you. So negative 1, negative 3, and then a slope of negative 1/2, down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. And again, you get nice, lots of dots, nice and pretty across your grid there. Okay, and then draw a nice straight line. Okay, all right, now let's go to the next example here on the next page. Okay, now the directions on this page say write an equation of a line that passes through, the given point and has a given slope. Now, one of the things the directions does not say Let's go ahead and put that in here. We're talking about, they're going to want slope-intercept form on this. Okay, so if you see these directions, we're talking about slope-intercept form. Okay, so that's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the given information, and then we're going to kind of pick an equation and go with it. So if I look at this, I've got a point and a slope. So since I have a point and a slope, I'm going to write point slope. So I'm going to do y minus 5 equals 3x minus negative 2, which we obviously know will be a plus. Okay, so now if I want to get it into slope-intercept form, I'm just going to start distributing and moving things around until it looks like y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I'm going to start by distributing the 3. So I get y minus 5 equals 3x plus 6. So I push the 3 through to both parts. And then my last step to get the y by itself would just be to add 5 over to the other side. So I get y equals 3x plus 11. And this is your answer. So when you're given a point and a slope, start in point slope and then just take it to whatever it tells you to take it to. Okay? Now, some of you would have been taught this a little different last year. So I just kind of want to show, just to make sure you understand it's kind of the same thing. A lot of you probably were taught y equals mx plus b. And you would have been taught that this is the x and the y. And so you would have said 5 equals, your slope is 3, negative 2 plus b. And so you'd have had 5 equals negative 6 plus b, and you would have added the 6 over and got 11 equals b. And so then you would have wrote your final equation as y equals 3x plus 11. And this is a fine way of doing it. I have no problem with you doing it this way, but when you're given a point and a slope, it's really just as easy to distribute and move one thing over. Okay, because a lot of students forget to this last step is you got to write the final equation, where this guy it's already given the final equation. So that's why I teach it like this. Okay, so what I want you to do again is pause the video, and I want you to try to do B doing my method. Okay, all right, so go ahead and pause it. All right, so you should be picking up here at B. Again, you have a point and a slope, so let's write point slope. So y minus negative 7 equals a slope of negative 1, and then x minus 4. Okay, so again, it's going to become a plus 7. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute and get negative 1x plus 4. And then I'm going to subtract my 7 over. So y equaled negative 1x minus 3. And that would have been your final answer. Okay. All right, next example here. Again, this one should be the same thing. We're going to be writing it in slope-intercept form at the end. Okay, so make sure that you're getting this into slope-intercept. So y equals mx plus b. Okay, now the problem here is anytime you have two coordinate points, you are going to have to find slope first, no matter what. Two coordinate points, almost always step one is going to be find slope. All right, so I'm going to start. I've got negative 8. Put your y's on top. Negative 8 minus 12, and 4 minus negative 1. So on the top, I have negative 20, and on the bottom, I have a positive 5. So my slope is negative 4. Now you're just doing exactly what we did on the last problem. This just has one extra step. Step 1, oh, let me write that down, sorry. Step 1, find slope. Okay, so step 1. Find slope. Okay, and then on step 2 here, we're going to use one of the points. It doesn't matter which one, just pick one. Doesn't matter. So I'm just going to pick the first one because it's the first one. And I'm going to do step 2. Okay, right equation. Okay. So I've got y minus 12, okay, because I'm going to use this guy right here. So y minus 12 equals negative 4, x minus negative 1. Okay, it becomes a plus. So y minus 12 equals negative 4x minus 4, and then add the 12 over. So y equals negative 4x plus 8. And that's going to be your final answer. Okay, again, I would like you to try to pause now and try B on your own. And then when you think you've got it, let's tune back in and see if you got it right. Okay, so you should be rejoining us now, and we're looking at B. Step 1, again, was find slope, so it just depends on how you set it up. It doesn't matter what y value you start with on top, so this time I'm going to start with the -8 minus the 0, and then on the bottom, since I started with the -8 here, I'm going to start with the 5 here. So 5 minus -7. So on the top, I've got a -8. On the bottom, I have a positive 12, and 4's come out of both of that, so it's going to be -2/3. Again, it doesn't matter if the negative's on top, bottom, or up front, just as long as you got it. Okay, so now if I'm looking at these two points here, the first one and the second one, I'm totally picking the second one. Anytime I got a 0, I'm going with that puppy because that's going to be easier. Okay, so this is the point I'm going to choose to use on this one. So I've got point slope again, y minus, my y value here is 0, equals -2/3 x minus -7. Okay, well, this is just going to go to y equals, so that's awesome. Now I'm going to have to push the 2/3 through. So -2/3 x, this should become a plus. So now I'm going to have to take 7 times 2/3. Okay, so I'm going to take 7 times 2/3 and get -14/3. And I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm not going to try to change it to decimals or anything like that. I'm going to leave my answer as improper fractions. Okay? All right, and the last example we're going to do today, example 4. So we're going to take a look. We're not going to get to the standard form yet today. So we're going to look at example 4. Okay? In addition to his weekly salary, Ethan is paid $16 per delivery. All right, I'm going to stop right there because we've already talked about this in class. Per, usually, not always, but normally will tell you slope. Last week, he made 5 deliveries, and his total was $215. Write a linear equation, A. Write a linear equation to find Ethan's total weekly pay T. Now, we've talked about that if it's a capital, that's your Y value. If it's lowercase, that's your X value. If he makes D deliveries, okay? So now, it doesn't tell us which equation, so since it doesn't specify, I'm probably going to put it in point slope and stop at this point. However, if it did say slope intercept, I would then distribute, okay? So if I'm looking here, I know this is my slope. And if I look, I have 5 deliveries, $215. Well, if we think about things, we have to have an x, y coordinate point, right? And instead of x, I have now a d. And instead of a y, I now have a t. So my coordinate point would be 5 deliveries, $215. Okay? So now when I write this guy out, maybe. Okay, I'm going to have, sorry guys, okay, so I'm going to have y minus my y value of 215 equals $16 per, so there's my slope, and then x minus 5. Now, since it didn't specify which one, I'm going to go ahead and leave it just like that and count this as my final answer. If you were to go ahead and distribute, that would be fine as well. Okay? All right, and the last question here is use your equation now to predict how much you will earn in 8 weeks. Okay? So I know 8 weeks. Oh, you guys know what I didn't do? I messed this up. I have to use D and T. Okay, so instead of Y, I should have put a T here. Instead of X, there should be a D there. So go ahead and make that correction. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to that. All right, so now it says let's go ahead and plug in 8 deliveries. So I have T minus 215 equals 16, 8 deliveries minus 5. Okay, now it doesn't matter if you want to distribute this. Some of you are obsessed with distributing, that's fine. If you want to take 8 minus 3 and then multiply it by 16, either way, it doesn't matter. So if I distribute, I get 128, and then 16 times 5 would be minus 80. I have T minus 215. So now I'm going to take 128, I'm going to subtract off that 80 and get 48. And then I'm going to add the 215 over to the other side. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with T equals $263. Okay, so now what this means is for 8 deliveries, he's going to get a total of $263. All right, and that concludes notes up to this section, and we'll finish the notes at a later time.